Mr. President, distinguished heads of state and government, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, 2 years ago, I addressed for the first time this General Assembly as King of Spain. At this time, I feel the self-same honor and the same responsibility that I did then, because the United Nations is the universal forum for peace and the progress of mankind, the place where we must ensure the future of our planet. That is how the Spanish people understand it, and it so demands from us today. We cannot let down the millions of people. And since the Spanish society believes in the principles, values, and purposes of the San Francisco Charter and the declaration which was promoted by Spain last year, defending what the United Nations stands for. With this declaration, we told the world that the Charter was not only a beacon which lit up the dark days of the past, that it also now lights up our present and our future. It is the beacon where the eyes of children go, those who are in refugee camps, and the mothers sheltering their children as they cross the Mediterranean, which are so moving. It is the hope of those who have lost their dear ones because of natural disasters or hunger, and those who defend human rights and our common dignity, and because of that they are persecuted, and the victims of terrorism in all of its despicable forms. It's also the source which has inspired the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, with which we've all committed ourselves to put an end to hunger and extreme poverty, and to make up a development model that is sustainable in the space of one generation. For Spain, the 2030 Agenda inspires our domestic and foreign actions. We must fight inequality and work for an economic model which will foster shared prosperity and will provide job opportunities for the young and, in general, all those who have suffered most from the impact of the crisis in recent years. No one should be left behind because of what we do or fail to do. In order to move forward along the course that concerns us all, the struggle for climate change is also fundamental, and I'm very happy to stress that almost a year ago in Paris we were able to achieve a crucial agreement on this matter. Its application is a priority on us all, and we will have to be called to account by present and future generations. The next COP22, which will be held in Morocco, will be a great opportunity to strengthen further our commitment. The Charter is today the beacon that shines upon Colombia. We Spaniards are very happy at the agreement arrived in that dear country for the sake of peace, and this has the support of our government, bilaterally and multilaterally. Our own Congress of Deputies has unanimously supported it. We will follow this reconciliation based on justice and human rights, and Spain will stand at the side of the people of Colombia to achieve peace in the future. The European, Ibero-American, and Mediterranean dimensions go to make up the identity of the Spanish people and our universal vocation. We are one of the countries that has most strongly contributed to the future of history, and we are proud for our contributions to the heritage of mankind. This year we are celebrating the 400th anniversary of the death of Cervantes, a genius of universal literature who knew how to transmit to us his belief that to live a noble and generous life is the best way of being and acting in the world. For us, children of Cervantes, to know how to live means also and especially how to live with others. When we live together in a democratic forum which safeguards our rights and freedoms so dearly won with regard to our diversity, that is when we give the best of ourselves and when we contribute best and the most to peace, security, and the prosperity of the international community. And we will continue along this path. All developed democracies such as ours, at some point in its history, go through complicated areas, but they overcome it through their society, the solidity of their institutions, its system of freedoms, their firm belief that differences and disputes can be resolved with will within respect of the rules which exist. The Spanish people has, over the last few decades, shown that it has espoused most constructively the values of dialogue, of commitment, the sense of duty and solidarity. Those values are values which turn nations into beacons of freedom throughout the world and promote progress and the well-being of their citizens. Spanish people have always come through difficult times, sometimes hit by economic crisis of a global reach, and our society has demonstrated an enormous capacity of getting through it. We must recover and continue to act on such basis and to safeguard and improve the welfare of the state in a truly sustainable growth model, diversifying our presence and giving attention most to those that have suffered and continue to suffer the impact of the recession. The presence of the Kingdom of Spain in the Security Council during the 2015-2016 biennium demonstrates that our country shoulders its responsibility, meets its commitments, and takes part constructively in the quest for today. Among these, we have great displacements of individuals, which are a tragic sign of our times, which is what we are attaching special attention to during this ministerial week. Spain addresses the final stage of its work in the Security Council by working with determination, responsibility, and transparency, guided as we are by our desire to achieve acceptable and effective commitments to prevent conflicts and resolve those who exist already. We have taken the lead in initiatives on humanitarian affairs, and we promote the growing participation of women in the prevention of conflict as well as the peace building, fighting abuses and violations against her freedom and dignity. In the immediate future and in the framework of an open and inclusive process, we will work towards the adoption of a resolution to ensure that non-state terrorist actors do not have access to arms, particularly the mass murder weapons. We will also try to make progress in legal matters against terrorism and strengthen measures against sexual violence in times of conflict. During this session of the Security Council, we have every day dealt with crises which stir our conscience. And despite all of these frustrations, we shall not falter. 5.5 years of conflict in Syria has caused the death of more than 300,000 people, the forced displacement of more than half of its population, and it has split the country with serious dangers of irreversible fragmentation. We've seen the endangerment of the stability of the whole region, especially of neighboring countries whose generosity in welcoming Syrian refugees must be acknowledged. We lament the breaking of the ceasefire, and we express our best wishes to all the people involved, especially the humanitarian personnel. We hope that the hostilities will stop. In this context, Spain is working towards better humanitarian assistance. There is no military solution to conflicts. A peaceful solution must preserve the unity of a country in an inclusive and democratic framework. Iraq is suffering from the onslaught of the terrorism of Daesh, and Spain participates in the assistance provided. We repeat our full support to the government of Iraq in its efforts to build a democratic country involving all the members of all religions and ethnic identities, with full respect to the rights of all people and the principle of territorial integrity. We shall not be resigned vis-à-vis other situations which seem to persist, be it in Yemen, Libya, or Afghanistan. Spain supports UN efforts to find a just, lasting, mutually acceptable political solution which will allow for the free determination of the people of Western Sahara and the framework of provisions which are compatible with the principles and purposes of the UN Charter. The Security Council in April renewed for 1 year MINURSO's mandate. In this connection, Spain welcomes the reestablishment of the activities of the mission in compliance with what was stipulated in Security Council Resolution 2285. We urge the parties to resume dialogue in order to put a final end to this dispute. Spain has strengthened its relations also with the African continent, whose strength and dynamism we hail, and to which we accord preferential and special attention. We follow with concern the development of the conflicts in South Sudan, Mali, Somalia, the Central African Republic. In these last three countries, there are Spanish interests in the framework of operations by the EU, as well as in the various missions of the United Nations throughout the world. I'm referring to these now, and I thus wish to pay tribute to all the blue helmets who are working for peace in missions throughout the world, sometimes at the risk of their lives. We must also acknowledge the work done by the African Union itself and the sub-regional bodies, which are serving so well the purpose of the maintenance of peace on the continent, a success to which Spain will continue actively to contribute. In a map of the world where we see so many shadows, there are also areas of hope. We have welcomed the Iranian nuclear program agreement and the verification of its compliance by Iran, and the conditions which put an end to the regime of sanctions and opened the door to a new trade regime. We are coordinating very forcefully the consideration of trade operation requests. There's nothing that would give us more hope than the resumption of negotiations of peace between Israelis and Palestinians. This is the year of the 25th anniversary of the Madrid conference in Spain, and we support the holding of an international conference which will help encourage negotiations. The solution on the basis of two states with secure, mutually agreed borders is the only formula for a just and lasting peace. Rejection and clashes between communities must lead the way to peaceful coexistence. In this context, Spain will promote initiatives to promote concord among the civil societies of both parties. On our continent, 2.5 years ago, Ukraine's sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity was violated. The European Union, Ukraine, and Russia must be able to find a course that will benefit us all in terms of security, European prosperity, on terms that respect the principles of international law and the values of democracy. We follow with concern the serious and repeated violations of the non-proliferation regime by the DPRK. We appeal to them to focus its hopes on finding a sincere climate of understanding and dialogue with the international community. As to the European Union, the great venture of coexistence is now at a major crossroads. As Jean Monnet said, the European project is not something that was given to us. We will have to create it every day, not only on the basis of common interests, but also on the basis of common interests. The European Union is an act of resolve and trust in the ability of our peoples to overcome past mistakes, which we should not come back to. Its continuity and strengthening are key for the peace and prosperity of our continent and are an enormously positive factor because of its example and the beneficial deployment of capacities which help all members of the United Nations. No one would gain if it were to become paralyzed or fail. We Spaniards are proud of belonging to the EU, from which we have certainly obtained undeniable benefit, and we've also contributed in terms of many sacrifices when it was necessary for the European common good. In the current circumstances, we are ready to continue at the vanguard of greater expansion of the EU in all areas. As Spain has always done from this podium, let me say that Gibraltar is the only remaining existing colony in European territory. In compliance with the UN mandate, I invite the United Kingdom to put an end to this anachronism by an agreed solution between our two countries to restore the territorial integrity of Spain and will be beneficial for the population of the colony and the Gibraltar area. This year is the last in the mandate of Mr. Ban Ki-moon, the UN Secretary General. I would like to thank him on behalf of Spain for his outstanding service and my personal gratitude and appreciation. Spain welcomes the criteria of transparency and participation, which should guide us in choosing his successor. I trust that we will be able to make the best possible choice. In conclusion, Spain is a candidate to the Human Rights Council for the 2018-2020 period, and I ask for your support to this end. The promotion and defense of human rights are a hallmark of our activities. We are particularly committed to gender equality, to the right to drinking water and sanitation, the rights of people with disabilities, and the fight against racism, xenophobia, as well as hate crimes. The United Nations have in Spain a member which is committed to the values embodied in this organization, and we know that they rely on us to deal with the main challenges of today. We do this in the spirit of Don Quixote and the loyalty of Sancho Panza. Our universal classicists told us that everyone is the maker of his own life. We Spaniards want to help the United Nations where the venture of human rights and respect for human dignity will prevail at all times. Thank you.